Welcome to week 13 of the Sunday spread. Gobble, gobble, everybody. Thanksgiving weekend. We actually have a few games to talk about before Sunday's games. But first and foremost, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. How are you doing, Barrett Brooks? How you doing, Devin Caney? How's your Thanksgiving?
Amazing. I mean, I cook from sun up to sundown on the day before Thanksgiving, and then turn around and just gorge myself after that on Thursday. So
What's on
it
your
was
plate?
amazing.
What's on your
Are
plate?
you
man,
I feel like you're a fried turkey person, Barrett. Like, do you fry your turkey?
Dev, I usually for the past 4 years I switched it up.
Uh-huh.
I just roasted it in the oven. For the first time
Oh
I roasted
wow.
in the oven, tasted pretty good, So I might, I changed it up. I cooked a turkey, a brisket, two chickens, a ham. Um,
Oh my
and it
God,
took,
that's a lot of meat.
yeah, it
Yeah,
took
yeah.
forever.
Right. Barrett, what's on your plate? I want to know for each of y'all, what's on y'all plate?
I definitely sample the meat first. I sample the meat first. So I have one plate with just meat on it. But then I wanted to slow down a little bit. I didn't want to gain 50 pounds. I only wanted to gain 40 pounds. So I had just a little bit of mashed potatoes and gravy, and a little bit of lobster macaroni, mac and cheese, and some green beans, and that was it. That was it.
Okay.
And I only
What
went
about
back
you,
one
Dev?
time. Went back one time.
Wow. I'm impressed. I'm very like my family does traditional, but like my mom is a really good cook, so it's like really rich traditional, just like stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potato casserole, green bean casserole. I'm a big like I don't separate my foods. Like whenever I eat really any meal, by the end of it, my plate looks like a bomb went off on it. Like I'm just a messy eater. So on Thanksgiving, that's like tenfold. But I'm a big like everything goes together. Like I need a bite of stuffing, cranberry sauce, turkey, sweet potato all together. And I actually I just had, before we went into the show, I already had my Thanksgiving leftover sandwich that's like almost better than the Thanksgiving dinner. So I'm doing well. The
Well,
turkey might hit during this show though. So if I like fall asleep, just wake me
See,
up or let me sleep. I don't know. Either way.
I'm the opposite of you. I'm a sectional eater. My brother was just making fun of me about this. I'm a sectional eater. I eat all of one thing and then I move on. And then I move on.
Oh
I don't mix
no.
anything together. I know my brother was
what?
like, "What are you doing right now?" But I'm very
Right.
sectional. But yeah, at my house, I don't have turkey. I don't like turkey. I think turkey is the most overrated thing in the world. It's just I can't do it. So at my house, everyone just brings their favorite dish. What you're known for, that's what you bring. So I had oxtail, ribs, baked ziti, macaroni and cheese, and that was all on my plate. And then there were some other things in there too, some fried chicken, et cetera, but no ham or no turkey for me.
Wow, that's
Our
crazy,
producer
man. I
Kenny,
can see you
our
being that.
producer Kenny goes, the turkey hit Matt Eberflus in the fourth quarter. Yeah, it certainly did. Those Thanksgiving games, I can't wait to get into those.
Well, let's get into it
Woo.
right now. Once again, Sunday spread presented by BetMGM on the BetQL network. Sean Bell, Barrett Brooks, Devin Caney on this Thanksgiving weekend. Three games that I thought were going to be trash. Two of them ended up being very interesting games, and we got to start with Kenny's team, the Chicago Bears. I guess we'll just start at the ending, all right? Because we thought this was going to be a blowout. They came back, 34 seconds left on the clock, and then you saw what you saw. You saw a sack. You saw them only get off one more play. Game over. No real chance. Everybody, and Eberflus after the game said, "We did that correctly. It just didn't work out." Okay, we'll see if
No
No, you
regrets.
didn't.
we'll see if you correctly have a job in a week. That's what we're going to see after this weekend. Barrett, I'll start with you. We'll start with the fourth quarter. What's going
That
on there?
statement alone.
As the former player, who's supposed to do what?
Well, you're talking about a rookie quarterback. So at this point, he's not you can't trust him to make the best decision for the team. And we're talking about for the entire team, not just the offense, but for the entire team to call a timeout. Give yourself an opportunity to even kick a field goal to tie it. It's not like they were getting blown out. They came back and they're 3 points away from tying it, and then they had the momentum. They had all the momentum in the world. It wasn't like it was just an average drive. They took it from deep in their territory and drove the ball down the field. And for them not to call that timeout, his job should be gone right now. That's a cuttable offense. You know what I'm saying? Come on now. You can't rely on your quarterback who's a rookie, who's just now starting to play some good football to make those type of decisions. He's trying to win. You got to make that decision for him. So for Eberflus to say that, that's a travesty. He lost that game for that team, and instead of him taking responsibility for it, he's going to say that was the right decision to make. He should have been talked to the next day. He should be talked to today. He should be in the owner's office right now discussing why he made that stupid decision.
Well, our producer Kenny said he spoke this morning, so there's not going to be any firing as of right now. We'll see what another week brings us, but he's still going to coach the team this next week. Devin, what was on your mind when you saw that?
Well, I've been saying for weeks now that I feel sorry for Chicago Bears fans. And I know that we've talked about, coaches that are on the hot seat. Doug Peterson, head coach of the Jags, has been a name that came up. It's hard to believe even Nick Sirianni was a name that a lot of people mentioned was on the hot seat earlier in the season when the Eagles weren't doing as well. I don't know the updated odds on that, but I would bet that Matt Eberflus certainly has them now. I thought he would have the highest odds to be the next head coach to go weeks ago. I mean, you look at what the Bears have done in recent weeks, and it's really hard to not feel sorry for them because they're not necessarily playing bad football. Caleb Williams is making tons of progress. He's really taken a step forward throughout this season. All of their games, so the Commanders, that devastating Hail Mary that won Washington that game, lost 18-15. After that, got blown out by the Cardinals. But then you jump to the Packers game, lost by 1 point, lost to the Vikings by 3, lost to the Lions by 3. It's like this team can't catch a break, and the coach just continues to hurt them. I know that they did fire the offensive coordinator already. At this point, I could see them just not firing him or letting him go until the end of the season because they've lost enough games that, what's the point of even going through that whole turmoil? But it's not great, and I do feel bad for Bears players and Bears fans.
At first, when I saw that play, I said I blamed it on Caleb Williams at first. But then I said to myself, like Barrett said, okay, this is a rookie quarterback because you can't take that sack. And if you do take that sack, 34 seconds, one timeout, you should be able to run another play and still have your timeout and still be able to spike. But from what I'm hearing or from what I read is they didn't get to play it for another 20 seconds, right? Most veteran quarterbacks would have had a play in their head that they would have lined their squad up, called the play, and just ran it. But he's a rookie quarterback. He's not going to have that in his head. So the coach needs to do something in order for that situation to be right for Caleb Williams. So then I was like, okay, it's Matt Eberflus. And then I'm saying to myself, what does Matt Eberflus have on this owner? Like drugs, sex. What does he have on him? This tapes. What does he have on this owner? Because he should have been fired last year, if we're being honest. But he gets another chance, right. And then after all this, he still has a job. This was a playoff team. This was a 4-2 team, and now look where they're at. Just absolute trash. So everyone's in the same page with Matt Eberflus, and he needs to go. Another game, Giants Cowboys, between two coaches coaching for their lives. Really, the Cowboys coach. McCarthy seems like he's going to keep his job because he's starting to win games and they're looking good. The Giants, on the other hand, that's another. I guess the bets are who's going, Eberflus or Dable. Who's going first is what we're trying to ask. Dev, what did you see out of that game and Dable still having a job?
So it's hard to say that Dable would keep his job over Matt Eberflus. Kenny just said Eberflus is 0-19 on Sundays on the road. That's actually insane. 5-19 in one-score games.
Are you kidding
They're
me?
both bad. They're both. Isn't that crazy? They're both bad. I think like Dable won Coach of the Year 2 seasons ago. Isn't that crazy to think about as well? Like just the downfall and how quickly things can take a turn with the Giants. The thing is with the Giants, nothing is great in New York, but I would put most of the blame on the GM and owner versus Dable, right? Like Dable wasn't part of the decision to let Saquon go to your division rival.
Right.
Dable wasn't
Right.
part of the decision to completely muck up and overpay and then let go of Daniel Jones, and now you don't have a quarterback. Like that wasn't his decision. So I think like he does deserve some blame for how poorly they're playing, but at the end of the day, they just don't have the personnel to be able to compete on the level that other teams are competing in the league. So, I mean, Matt Eberflus is just complete mismanagement of a team. Like, I'm surprised he still has been fired. Could you imagine if that was here in Philadelphia? I feel like fans would be demanding that he not even be on the plane home. Like, and I'm not saying that as a slight to Chicago fans. I'm just saying, like, I cannot imagine how angry I would be if I was a fan of the Chicago Bears.
They would be trying to burn him at the stake.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah, they're angry over there. So the Giants, and it's crazy because you look at Dable and all the things going on there, and everyone's saying it was Daniel Jones or Saquon. I go, Saquon, they could have had both if they really wanted it. Like Saquon didn't get $100 million. He got running back money. Running back money is 45, right? Jalen Hurts has a max contract, basically, the equivalent of. And they were still able to sound Saquon. So that's how bad the GMing in Giants Nation is you could have had both guys. Again, you didn't need Daniel Jones, period. But it's not like it was Daniel Jones took all the money. It was, no, you just didn't want to pay Saquon, 40? And again, the Eagles paid, I believe, what was it, 40 to 45? Like, Saquon would have took less to stay with the Giants at one point in time. He would have took 38, and you didn't want to give him 38. So that's a problem. Dallas Cowboys coming down the stretch. Can they ruin some things? Barrett, now that they're playing better football, you see Michael Parsons. I'm not saying get in the playoffs. I'm saying defeat teams in jockeying for playoffs. Maybe get a win over the Eagles. Get a win over somebody because now they're playing better football.
Cooper Rush is still their quarterback, so the chance of that is slim to none. I can't see that happening. When you look at that team, the way it's built, defensively, they should be a lot better than what they are. And, now that they have Parsons back, they can generate a little more pressure on them, but it still doesn't change the fact that they can't stop the run. And that's our bread and butter. They can't stop the run. But when I look at them on offense, it's so bad that CeeDee Lamb, he didn't even want to play yesterday. He didn't want to play in the game. He didn't want to go out there again. He sat on the sideline. I know he was hurt, but it seemed like he was just like, Rush is still out there. I'm really not feeling going back in. I'm not going to go catch a ball across the middle of the field, get knocked really out. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to sit back and chill. That's almost looked like his demeanor yesterday. And then, that offensive line is not good, right? And probably will be good next year when the rookie left tackle gets back. I mean, when the rookie tackle becomes a more physical, dominant player, they could be okay. But at this point, they're just not – I don't think they're sound fundamentally on the offensive side of the ball, which is crazy to me because that's where they used to make all their headway, was in the offensive side of the ball. They're just not good. Cooper Rush is just not good enough to be a starter in the league for a long period of time. Yeah. So I just think that they just beat up on a really bad team yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Dev.
Sorry, I feel like I need to raise my hand. So it's hard. I feel like Thanksgiving week is always just like really discombobulating because we have like the Sunday games and multiple games on Thursday. Can we just talk for a second about the Cowboys Commanders game week 12? Because that was insanity. Like the back and forth at the end of that game. I'm not saying it was good, but as an Eagles fan, just watching these two teams play terribly and then decide to just kind of like volley back and forth, especially on special teams at the end of the game, I was like, what is going on? It was funny to me.
Right.
But that's what I mean about the Cowboys playing better and ruining some teams' positioning, right? Like, okay, you get a win over the Commanders.
Cowboys fans were mad about it. They didn't want them to win. They don't want them to win. They want them to tank at this point.
I know they tank it for Shador, but again, they're looking really good, and that's why I think at the end of the season they can but beat someone and ruin their positioning. Let's talk real quick about the Packers game real quick. We know what the Dolphins are. They're out of here. The Packers, are they the third best team in the NFC? And if so, can they upset Detroit Lions or the Philadelphia Eagles if they play their perfect game? Dev, I'll start with you.
No. I don't think I'd consider them the third best team in the NFC. I don't want to call the Packers frauds, but I've never been as high on them as a lot of analysts and national media seem to be. I think Jordan Love is really talented. And I know that they really improved at the end of last season and especially in the playoffs, but I just need to see a little bit more, especially from, their run defense. I think Josh Jacobs has been having an incredible year, but then their receiver, I just don't know if they have enough. I don't even want to use the word star power, but power receiving wise. And in the pass game, I just don't see their talent being able to compete with the Lions or the Eagles.
Barry, real quick, you where you have them?
They're just outside of the top 5. I think they're a good team, but like Dev said, they have young receivers that are just now starting to get into their prime. Not really prime, but getting to a really good cohesiveness with their quarterback. Defensively, they're good against the pass, but they suck against the run. Are they a team that can go out and make some guys, make some other teams look bad? Yeah, they can. They can do that. But as long as you're playing fundamental football, it's hard for you to, take them seriously as a really contender in the NFC.
Okay. I mean, they can't beat the Lions or the Eagles, but fifth, I don't know who else behind the Lions or the Eagles can compare, because after that, it's a big drop off. So I would put the Packers in that third spot. But again, I don't think they could beat the Eagles or the Lions. All right, when we come back, it's upsets for this week, and review a couple upsets from last week. We talked about the Dallas Cowboys and the Commanders. There were 3 or 4 games where I was like, whoa, where did that come from? It came out of nowhere, and it really messed up some of my parlays at the same time. So that pissed me off. So we're going to get back to it. We're going to get to the upsets on the Sunday spread. Welcome back to the Sunday Spread, presented by BetMGM on the BetQL network. Sean Bell here, Barrett Brooks, Devin Caney on this Thanksgiving weekend. Let's talk upsets. All right, we had a lot of upsets throughout the entire season, but a few big upsets last week, and we'll give you some upsets to expect this week. Let's look at last week real quick, because I couldn't believe it. Again, it messed up my parlays. Texans losing to the Titans 32-27. Ridiculous. We talked about the Cowboys and the Commanders. The Cowboys beat the Commanders 34-26. So we've had some upsets. And that Thursday night game, guys, I was just talking about how I think the Steelers can have it all. Remember last week? They can have it all. They can win it all. They can do it. This team can ball. Then they go out and lose to Jameis Winston, the funniest quarterback in the league, and the Cleveland Browns. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to say, but a lot of big upsets. What was the most surprise upset to you guys from last week?
For me, it was an almost upset, and that was the Panthers and the Chiefs. I mean, even the fact that the Panthers were able to almost take that game to overtime, I was personally disappointed, because I would have loved to see the Panthers hand the Chiefs an overtime loss. But I was just shocked at how close they kept that game. I mean, people have been down, and rightfully so, on the Panthers all season. But they brought it against Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs, and Bryce Young was looking better. He was looking like a real quarterback. So I was very surprised to see that.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, are we just kind of downplaying that team actually getting better? The Panthers are actually playing some good football. I think so.
Yeah.
I would say that that Titans win was probably my biggest. That one, and the Cowboys beating the Commanders so handily. They really played well. They played good defense against that Commanders team, and I think this is more. I kept telling people that Daniels would eventually come back down to earth, because defensive coordinators get paid millions of dollars to stop rookie quarterbacks, and once they figured out what his quirks are, they went and capitalized on those things and really played very well against them. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at it as though Josh Daniels is still a good player, but defensive coordinators will scheme him. And I think Vic Fangio was the first to really start that, happening. They gave him a blueprint on how to play him. And ever since then, they've been playing down to earth. So that to me, Dallas beating them and really exposing, that offense really turned things around in my head on the Eagles just being the tippity top of the division.
Yeah, the Texans-Titans one killed me. I mean, and Dev talked about how good that defense was last week that the Titans had. And I was like, but still, they're still the Titans. They're still a bad team. They're still 2-8. There's no way they can beat the Texans, who just have a good team. And Joe Mixon has been money for me all year long when it comes to betting. When it comes to anytime touchdowns, when it comes to getting 75-plus yards, he's been all of those things, and he was shut down on top of the fact that the Titans scored 32 points. Dev, I know you told me their defense was pretty good. I didn't know their offense was capable of scoring 30-something points, especially against the Texans, who have a top 5 ranked defense. So
I didn't either. But Sean, like, when are you going to start listening to me? That's all I want to know. I feel like every week we come in here and it's like, Dev was right. Like, it's so hard always being right.
That's why I won't listen to you. That is the exact, the smugness in your voice is the reason why I will not listen to you. And you only do the smugness with me. So that's why we're going to have to be enemies this entire season, okay?
Because you're a hater and you always you're like, no, I'm not tailing that. No, that's not going to happen. The Titans, their defense not that good, but here we are.
Well, it's another one.
You also told me the Browns could be a tough game, and I laughed at you. And then there you go, the Steelers lose to the Browns. So maybe I should.
How does that happen, though? How does that happen? How do they lose to the Browns?
So the Browns have won 3 games this season, and 2 of them have been against divisional opponents. It's the Ravens and the Steelers, and then the third is against the Jags. It's just kind of crazy. Like, I don't know if maybe they're underestimating the Browns when they go into these games, but they're at least winning the few games that matter.
Right.
Oh, whatever.
Well, another game is, how do the 49ers get beat like that? No, I mean, I'm not trying to make a joke. I'm really not. But the Packers beat up on them like that? I mean, come on. I know.
Barrett. They didn't have Brock Purdy. They didn't have Nick Bosa. They didn't have Trent Williams. They've had 10 Pro Bowlers out. 10. Most teams don't have 10 Pro Bowlers. You just said that to get me heated. Most teams don't have 10 Pro Bowlers. They've missed 10 Pro Bowlers this year. And that doesn't even include Jake Moody or Dre Greenlaw. They've 10 Pro Bowlers. They got practice squad players on that team playing. See, that's just bullying. Even you talking about the 49ers is bullying at this point. They're a defenseless team right now, and you just want to get under my skin. So we're going to move on because both of y'all are annoying, and I can't wait until the Eagles lose. I have
that was ill intent. I'm sorry, man, because I didn't have anything else to say.
I know.
I really
now my blood pressure is up.
I really didn't have anything to say about it. I just wanted to throw it out there, man.
All right. You know what? Let's move on to this week and the upsets this week. Ravens, please do something this week, please. Upsets this week. I think a lot are brewing this week, despite these 2 clowns laughing at me. A lot of upsets are brewing. Barrett, I'll start with you this time, even though you're disrespectful. What is the upset that the biggest upset that you're looking at this week?
Well, I'm actually looking at that Jets game, man. Jets Seattle.
What?
Jets Seattle, man. I just think that I know this is going, this Dev is going to be a little pissed off, but I think the Jets find a way to beat up on the Seattle team. I think the Jets make them their defense is good, and I think they make them one-dimensional. And with that, I don't think that their passing game can, have any real effect on the Jets' defense. You know what I'm saying? I like their corners. I like the way they play pass defense. This is a really good defense. It's just the offense sucks. So I'm saying the Jets upset Seattle in this game. I think that's a huge, huge upset.
With the NFC West, you never know, because I feel like every team in the NFC West can beat the best team in the league and then lose to the worst team in the league. We've always talked about their inconsistency. It's ridiculous. So I could see that happening. With Deb, what's the biggest one for you?
Well, and I'm pretty sure the NFC West is still like wide open, right? Aren't they all kind of just like hovering around 500?
Yeah, 2 6-5s and 2 5-6s.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to guess who I have as my upset this week. It's the Eagles over the Ravens. The Eagles are underdogs going into Baltimore. Eagles have won 7 games straight. They literally have not lost a game since the end of September, since Nick Sirianni shaved his head, since their bye week. They're absolutely rolling. And I think that this is a similar game situation that we saw last week when they went to LA, where they're facing a good, really good offense. And that's going to be the biggest test, I think, for the Eagles defense that's been playing incredibly well. Shout out Vic Fangio, and also all of those young Eagles cornerbacks and just guys who've been stepping up this season. But I think that Jalen Hurts is going to have to get things going through the air, which could be tough because Devontae Smith might be out again. But even so, I think it's a great opportunity to not necessarily have to rely on Saquon Barkley. And mind you, I said this last week because the Ravens' pass defense is not as good as their run defense, and Saquon Barkley still found a way to like set a record out in LA. So that could very much happen again in Baltimore, but I just think this is a good opportunity. Like, expect a AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts masterclass. And I think the Eagles have the advantage defensively. That Ravens offense is incredible, but their defense cannot stop the pass. They're ranked in the bottom of the league in terms of protecting the pass. So I think the Eagles have the advantage there.
Surprise, surprise. But listen, that is the game of the week. And
I was nervous saying that because I could feel Sean like judging me as I was saying it. I was just like trying to get through it. Like my heart, I swear my heart rate's like up right now because I'm like, what is he gonna say back?
Listen, I'm very respectful, so I don't say anything back. I'm very kind and nice. What that actually means, I have no ammo right now. So as soon as I get some ammo, Devin, it will be coming your way. Don't worry about that. But again, the Eagles. The only thing, and we'll talk about that game later on, but Lamar Jackson is just a different beast, right? Like the Eagles faced Jaden Daniels, but they haven't really faced mobile quarterback like him. He's the final boss of mobile quarterback. So that'll be a great game. I'm looking at another NFC West team, and I'm looking at the Arizona Cardinals beating the Minnesota Vikings. Again,
I'm on it too.
Like I said before, they are a team that can surprise anybody and they can lose anybody. And again, I still think the Vikings aren't real. I think they've come back down to earth a little bit. They're still playing good football. They still have a great record, but they're not the dominant team that they thought they were in the beginning of the season. So I think the Arizona Cardinals, like Barrett has always said, is a very good team. They got a running game. Kyler Murray can run around and do some things. So I think that'll be a big matchup against the Minnesota Vikings to sort of prove that the Vikings aren't as good as I think people build them to be. And the other upset that I'm looking at is the Steelers and the Bengals. I know the Bengals offensively ball out. I know in November, December, the Bengals have a great record. And the Steelers have had trouble scoring touchdowns over the last couple of games, but don't get it twisted. That is a team that can ball. That is a team that is well coached. That is a team that's not going to lose back-to-back games that easily. They are an overall, I still believe, even though they lost to the Browns, it was a short week. So now it's like, okay, we had a mini bye. So we're getting healthy a little bit. It extends a little bit, and I had more time to prepare. And so with that being the case, those guys are going to come off pissed off, angry, and wanting some revenge, and they're going to play hungry. So I like the Steelers in this game because, again, a good coach coming off a bye or a mini bye is going to be able to scheme some things up and get a win. So I think the Steelers being underdogs shouldn't really be the case.
Well, single digit underdogs with the Steelers. They're like it's just crazy how big the numbers are with Mike Tomlin led team. You know, if it's double digit, then they lose all the time. But it's on single digit, they're usually great going in and beating up on a team and winning when they're not supposed to win. So I just think that's going to be an upset outright. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be not even taking the points. That's going to be an outright win by the Steelers. Because Bengals offense, defense sucks. Their defense sucks, but their offense is unreal. And going against, the Steelers' best is their defense. I think that's where the game's going to be won. And their defense, Steelers' defense, is going to stop the Bengals' offense.
Okay, let me ask you guys this. There's 4 games that have the biggest odds or would be the biggest upset that are over plus 200. And I want y'all to pick a game out of these 4 games that you think can be the upset. Browns plus 200 versus the Broncos. The 49ers plus 260 versus the Bills. You have the Titans plus 220 versus the Commanders, and you had the Panthers plus 210 versus the Bucks. Out of those 4 games, which one do you think is the biggest possibility of getting the upset? Browns, Niners, Panthers, or Titans?
Well, you know how I feel about the Titans and their
Yeah.
defense, and also apparently their offense. And the Commanders, I mean, the Eagles broke the Commanders because they have not been playing well since they faced the Eagles a couple weeks ago. So if they continue to slide and the Titans continue to build momentum off of their win in week 12, then definitely the Titans over the Commanders.
I
Both of
think
you?
this, I
You
think
too,
that
Barrett?
I like that. I do like that. And but I mean, I'm starting to think that the Panthers are starting to be a little realer than what people are starting to give them credit for. I think they're playing some good football right now, you know, and that's tough for me to say with Carolina. I mean, they've been horrible for years, but I really think they're starting to get things going in the right direction. They are, you know, defensively they're playing well. And I mean, looking at Tampa Bay, I think they're a good average team. A good average team. Baker Mayfield keeps them in games. And, you know, your Hall of Famer is getting back slowly but surely. But will it be enough against that Panthers defense? I think that's going to be a tough game. And out of the Titans and Panthers, I would have to go with the Titans. But I mean, I'm not sleeping on the Panthers' ability to go out there and beat a Tampa team.
Bryce Young looks like an actual quarterback. He finally is getting the things he needs. I'm going to go with the Browns. I just think when Nick Chubb being back, that Browns defense still has Myles Garrett, still a very good defense. If Jameis Winston plays pretty good football, they can beat a lot of teams. They can upset a lot of teams at the very least. So I like the Cleveland Browns to sort of get an upset in this position if Jameis Winston plays to his capabilities and if they get that running game going. I still think the Browns are a quality team that can beat, I won't say most teams, but they can stay in most games and win it at the end if they need to. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, parlay time, touchdown parlay times. Mine didn't do too well last week. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people didn't come through for the kids. So I'm hoping this week it does. And this is the one thing I do listen to Devin Caney about. It's touchdown parlay. So we're going to hear what the Queen has to say about it coming up on the Sunday Spread. Welcome back to the Sunday Spread. It's touchdown time. And we got to go to the touchdown queen. And y'all don't understand how annoying it is for me to have to say that. But I got to give credit where credit is due. To my arch nemesis, to the Magneto, to my Professor X, Devin Caney, we're going to start with you. Touchdown parlays, what you got?
First of all, you calling me Magneto is so nice. Like, that might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me because I love Magneto. Okay.
You know what?
So first of all,
it always backfires.
First of all, last week, Sam Laporta chose to go off on Thanksgiving versus making me go 4 for 4 on my anytime touchdown parlay on Sunday. So thanks, Sam Laporta, for that one. But let's just get into my week 13 picks, starting with the Cardinals. Marvin Harrison Jr. I like him to get in the end zone. The Vikings, their run defense, really good. So watch that with James Conner and even Kyler Murray. But they're also allowing the most receiving yards to wide receivers, and they're in the top 5 for most receiving touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. So Marvin Harrison Jr., I like getting in the end zone. For the Steelers, I like Pat Freiermuth. He went 4 for 4 against the Browns. I like him getting in the end zone for the Steelers. Bengals allowing the second most touchdowns to the position, 2 tight ends. So Pat Freiermuth, and then Bucky Irving from the Bucks. I like him getting in the end zone. Panthers defense, still not great. They're allowing the most touchdowns to opposing running backs. And Bucky Irving has scored a touchdown in the last 3 of his 5 games. So Marvin Harrison Jr., Pat Freiermuth, and Bucky Irving, if I can speak English. There you
go. I like it. Then we going with the 9 stars this week too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like a lot of the main stars have not been scoring. Like Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, They didn't get in there for the last game the Lions played. They're usually like automatic. Trying to think of who else. For the Cardinals, James Conner had a really bad game. That's why I'm afraid to take him in anything until he starts being productive again.
Yeah,
So,
the running back,
take
the running
my
back for the
B-list
Lions.
stars.
Yeah, I was gonna say the running back for the Lions for Thanksgiving killed my touchdown parlay. Like I had Jacobs, I had Dowdle, and then I had David Montgomery. And for the first time, it feels like all year a Detroit running back doesn't get a touchdown. So I said
Right.
thank you, happy Thanksgiving to me. So I was definitely annoyed by that. So Barrett, what are you liking for your touchdown parlays this week?
I think it's going to be a rejuvenation in Indy's locker room. I think Jonathan Taylor, after just bombing last week, he gets back into the end zone. He has a good game. I'm hoping he has a good game. I'm also going with CMC and George Kittle. Anytime touchdown for both of them because they need it in the worst way. They have got to be their offense. So I'm going to go with those two. And Najee Harris, he's got to step up. If they're going to win this game, he's going to have to be the catalyst for the game. So anytime touchdown for George Kittle, Najee Harris, CMC, Jonathan Taylor. And my last one, Joe Mixon gets back and gets back to being who he was, for the most of the season. I mean, come on now, Mixon. You got to give me something. And he didn't give me anything last week, so I think this week he's going to rejuvenate himself also. So I'm going with guys rejuvenating. Right, and then all of a sudden this last game, bam, it's gone. Come on now. So I think both of those guys, both Mixon and Taylor, get back on the winning track, get back on anytime touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I got Joe Mixon. Again, he's been reliable. Again, they're facing the Jaguars. 2-9 team. Again, we are in Philadelphia, and we like Doug Peterson. We don't want to see Doug get fired, but we may be talking about the inevitable at this point. So the Jaguars are bad. Yeah, the Jaguars are a bad team. So I think the Texans get up early and then they run the ball a lot. We'll talk later about overall parlays, but I think this is a bounce back game for Joe Mixon where he gets over 100. But I do think he gets an anytime touchdown in this game. Chuba Herbert, my man from the Carolina Panthers, having a low-key really good season, 876 yards and 7 touchdowns. I think he's going to get in the end zone. He's been their mainstay. And now that Bryce Young is playing a little bit better football and throwing it around, I think he's going to have a little more space. And so I think he gets in the end zone. So I like him in that spot. I'm going to go back to J.K. Dobbins. Didn't do anything for me last week, but he has been someone who's been consistent. So I think J.K. Dobbins gets in the end zone and scores. And I'm going to go with George Kittle also. Again, he's been their main threat in tight games. He's been the guy that they go through in the end zone. He has 8 touchdowns this season, and he's missed 2 games. So, he gets a touchdown almost every game that he plays. So I like that situation. And the last guy I actually want to ask you guys about, because he's been a guarantee anytime touchdown player that we haven't really picked every week. But at the same time, because he's playing a divisional opponent, it makes me a little bit scared. Ja'Marr Chase. The Bengals have been balling, right? Like, at least offensively, they've been balling. Ja'Marr Chase leads the league. He's in everything when it comes to wide receiver. Catches, receiving yards, and touchdown. He has 12 on the season. But again, facing the Steelers makes me a little bit nervous. Would you guys take Ja'Marr Chase in this game?
I wouldn't necessarily take him. Just because I don't know if that offensive line can handle what the Steelers are going to throw at them. So I think things go hand in hand. And I just don't see them giving, anybody back in the backfield a chance to really go deep down the field. Now, you're talking about short passes. They're good there too. You know what I mean? So I might fade Ja'Marr Chase going against the Steelers defense. I might fade that.
What you think, Dad?
I like it because I feel like he's Joe Burrow's most reliable. Well, he is Joe Burrow's most reliable option to get the ball to, and one of his only stars that he has. The Steelers defense is just so good, so it's tough. But I feel like they're better against the run than the pass, so I do like it. Are we playing Alt-8 right now? I feel like I'm playing our game that we're going to do next segment. But I'll take it.
He just threw it at us, didn't he?
I just threw it out there. And I didn't know I was going to have to throw this out, but I got to throw this one out too. Are all 3 of us scared? Because We didn't pick Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry.
Right.
Is it because you're like? Is it because we're like, this could be one of those games where things get awkward? Like, why? I don't know. I feel like I should be picking them both to score because both of those individuals score almost every week, but none of us picked them. Why?
I didn't even go with Mark Andrews. You know, I love my tight ends. I didn't even go with Mark Andrews.
I would. I don't know. Actually, I was gonna say I'd rather go with Mark Andrews than Derrick Henry, but I'd be more I'd probably feel better about taking Derrick Henry for a touchdown than Saquon, just because of the Ravens have the second best run defense in the league and the second worst pass defense in the league. So I feel more comfortable taking an AJ Brown anytime touchdown for the Eagles side of things than a Saquon or even a Jalen Hurts touchdown. But I also say this every week where I'm like, after Saquon has like a massive game, not that he's had a game as big as he had in LA against the Rams, but still, like, I'm like, oh, he won't do that twice. Like, he needs rest, and like they won't use him that much again, and then they do. So I'll probably be proven wrong, but I just feel better taking an AJ Brown over Saquon in this one.
How about on those 70-yard touchdowns? He did not get touched. He did not get touched on either one of those touchdowns. And so we talk about him taking all this punishment. I don't think he's taking a lot of punishment at all. You know, they're letting him get to the second level before he gets touched, which is, I'd rather get hit by a safety or a linebacker than to get hit by a defensive lineman. So, I mean, they're saying that, you know, all right, we got to conserve him. I don't think they need to conserve. I think they just keep doing what they're doing right now. I think he's built to last.
He might also jump over you. He does things like that to make sure he doesn't get hit. So salute to Saquon. Are there any individuals that you think might get two? Now that the season is sort of wrapping up, I'm now starting to take more risks. Now I'm starting to say, all right, maybe I can parlay some 2 touchdown guys. Maybe I can parlay 5 different guys getting over 100 yards, which hasn't worked out for me. But I'm always looking for that big payoff before the season ends. Is there a touchdown one? I think Joe Mixon. Now, it wouldn't be a big payoff, but facing the Jaguars, I think he can be a guy who gets in the end zone twice this week. Is anybody from your list where you go, that could be 2 times?
I think your boy Hubbard, you just got through talking about, could be a 2 touchdown guy. With the way they run their offense and the way he's been playing, he has a legit shot of being a 2 touchdown guy because, you know, they gave him a nice little contract. They're going to play him. They're going to run the rock. And that'll be the only way, really, that they can, you know, stay in that game. So he might be somebody that I would really think about 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
Him or
I'm
Robinson.
going to say AJ Brown. I think AJ Brown can get in there 2 times, especially if Devontae Smith doesn't play. He's been questionable. I think he was limited in practice later in the week, but it's looking doubtful. With his hamstring, and we know Jalen loves getting the ball to AJ Brown, who quietly had 109 receiving yards against the Rams. I know Saquon Barkley was the story there, but AJ Brown just continues to be an elite receiver, and I think against that Ravens secondary, he can absolutely get in the end zone twice.
Yeah, and again, with Devontae Smith being in and out of the lineup, he's the only one getting yardage. Right, so if their defense is going to be suspect against the pass, like you said, AJ Brown's going to ball out and catch some deep balls because you know they want to throw the deep ball to AJ Brown. So I'm definitely with you on that. It's just it makes me nervous to pick some of those tight games. Like I don't know why when it comes to touchdown scores at the very least. Ravens Eagles. I don't know.
Hey, let me ask you this: what happened to Bijan Robinson, man? What happened?
He's still having a good season.
I forgot the Falcons existed, honestly.
Right.
When's the last time they played? Seriously, where did they go?
Yeah. I mean,
are they
he's
even
still
playing
having a good. Yeah, they're playing the Chargers. I mean, Bijan, 783 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's had a good season, but it's, again, the Atlanta Falcons are faltering a little bit, and they're playing the Chargers, whose defense is really good. So I don't think he's going to have a unbelievable game against that Chargers defense, especially a Charger team coming off of a loss. So I like the Chargers in that game. But again, we'll talk about the big time games in a little bit. All right, when we come back, we will play the alt game, Devin Caney, where we can see where we can win some time money, 75 plus, 100 plus. Saquon Barkley, did anybody have him going for over 2? Was that a bet that was even out there? I would like to see that ticket if that was the case. Okay, 200
Right.
yards, 2 touchdowns. Let me see that ticket. We're gonna make some guesses coming up. All right, this is the Sunday spread. Sean Bell, Barrett Brooks, Devin Caney. Welcome back to the Sunday spread. Barrett Brooks, Devin Caney, Sean Bell. It's alt time. It's time for the big money. It's time for the Saquon Barkley's going to have over 200. I know nobody had that. It's time for the over 100, over 150. Who's going to have a big game? And with that said, our producer Kenny Henderson's going to come in and give us some names. Kenny, what you got?
All right, let's start in Minnesota for the Arizona Arizona Cardinals, versus Minnesota Vikings game. Big game in the NFC, guys. Marvin Harrison Jr., his line is 49.5. I know he's been a little up and down this year, but he is the best player on the Cardinals offense. He's the go-to guy. They're going to need to win this game. I've got him at 75-plus yards for plus 210 here in this matchup against a Vikings pass defense that has really struggled, especially of recent weeks. Devin, what do we think about Marvin Harrison Jr. in this game on Sunday?
I love it. I'll take it all day because I already have him in my anytime touchdown parlay. I think he has a big game for the Cardinals against that Vikings defense.
Barrett, what you think?
I gotta go with it, because I'm really thinking Arizona should be a lot better than what they are, and to me they're a really good team. So, I gotta go with it. I gotta go with it. So, yeah, I think that at this point they have been throwing the ball a little more than they have been running the ball. So I think they stay in the same little trend, and Murray airs it out, and yeah, Mr. Junior is gonna go out there and ball out. So yeah, I'm gonna go with it.
I gotta fade it, man. I get it. The Minnesota Vikings have a bottom 5. Somehow they're 9-2, have a bottom 5 pass defense. But at the same time, Marvin Harrison just hasn't performed over the last few weeks. Again, last week he had 47 yards. The week before that, 54 yards. The week before that, 34 yards. And then you get to a 100-yard game. But then after that, he had 21 yards. And he doesn't get a lot of targets per game either. He gets like 5, right? So with that said, I don't think he can have a big game because, again, he hasn't gotten the ball that much. He hasn't had that many targets because he's the main wide receiver, so everyone's locking in on him. And he hasn't had a big season like you thought he would have coming into his rookie year. So I'm going to fade it just because he hasn't been consistent. And he's been consistently underperforming if you just look at the numbers so far this season. What you think, Ken?
Yeah, no doubt. That's one thing that you got to look at here is he has not been consistent with his numbers. And I mean, that's where the scary part of the bet is. But I just think this is the matchup for him. I think that the Cardinals are going to need this game and they're going to want to get the ball to their best player. I think if Kyler doesn't find him in this game, they're going to struggle to win. So I think if you like the Cardinals in this game, especially with his normal line at 49.5, I feel like that's a huge opportunity to even take his over on that and maybe even alt it. Like we're saying here, up to 75 plus. And if you want to go crazy, maybe 100 plus. I think he's only had one or two 100-yard games to this in his career so far. So maybe this week will be his another one for him. So let's go to Justin Jefferson in the same game, guys. He had 2 receptions for 27 yards last week. Not very Justin Jefferson-like, but he's got a better matchup this week back at home against Arizona. How about him for 100 yards, Barrett, in this game at plus 160?
Well, Justin Jefferson is arguably number 1 or number 2 receiver in the league. I think he's number 2 right now. Well, maybe even 3 the way, if you get AJ back into the swing of things. I think that at this point you look at Jefferson and, they've got to make him happy. He's their best player. They've got to find a way to get the ball to him. He's good enough that if you do get him the ball, he's an amazing player. So I would definitely alter it. I'd alter it and give him 110. See what that wage would get you. He's that good.
I'm fading this again. Again, he's another guy. When you look at the last 3 weeks, 27 yards, 81 yards, 48 yards, hasn't had big games in the last 3 weeks because it's been double coverage, it's been brackets, it's been everything around him. And for that reason, Jordan Addison, that's a guy I would go to if you want to alt him 75 plus. guys like Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson have been getting off, have been having great games, career type games, because of all the attention Justin Jefferson's getting. So I just see Arizona saying, we're gonna bracket you. You know that one picture that I love to see of Calvin Johnson when it's a goal line situation and they literally put 2 players in front of Calvin. Like, you're gonna sit out there. We're not even gonna pretend. You're gonna double coverage this guy. Justin Jefferson isn't at that level, but that's sort of the type of attention he's getting. So I'm gonna fade it, and I'm going to prop up. I know he's not a part of this, Jordan Addison, because they've been benefiting from the double coverage of Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, Jordan Addison had over 160 receiving yards last week and a touchdown. And TJ Hawkinson did really well too. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to fade this as well. 100 is a lot for Justin Jefferson, who's an incredible player, but just did not play well. And I don't see him, having a bounce back game against his Cardinals defense. I'm not going to call them elite, but they've been playing a lot better. It seems like they improve, throughout the season. So I could see him maybe like 60 plus if you want to alt that, but I'm not going to go 100. 60 plus for Justin Jefferson is probably like minus 9,000 too. So maybe don't do that.
Well, I'm just saying Justin Jefferson is not a guy that you can keep under wraps like that for he's got to have a breakout game coming pretty soon. And against, when you talk about doubling people, I think, Budda Baker is probably the only guy that, they could use to double him. And he's not really that type of guy. He is a box safety as opposed to a covered safety. And that's the only reason why I say I would go with it, but I would still alt it for 100.
Yeah, you don't have to defend it. I respect it. I'm just not going to take it.
Of course, I wrote it down now.
Uh-huh. What you think, Kenny?
Yeah, I think it's like Barrett said, it's really hard to hold Justin Jefferson up. He only had 27 yards last week, and I think back in the dome, I think this is a big opportunity for him to go ahead and get back on track. And I think his over receiving yards number is probably the better look, but even alting it up to 100, something he does all the time, you're getting plus money. I think it's a good opportunity. Let's go to a running back now. The Jets run defense, guys, has been really bad all year long. Kenneth Walker, one of the best running backs in the league, at least top 10, I would say. 75 plus rush yards for him is plus 120, and 100 plus would be at plus 375. Really big number there. He should definitely get the bulk of the carries. The Seahawks are favored. They might be front running in the game. So, Sean, what do we think about Kenneth Walker in this matchup against the Jets?
He's another guy who, again, he hasn't performed at that level this entire season. I believe he's only had one 100-yard game this entire season. I believe that was week 1. So Kenneth Walker has been, again, if you're a fantasy guy, has been a major disappointment when it comes to fantasy. But with that said, I won't take the 100 plus, but I will take the 75 plus because the Jets' run defense is so terrible. The Seahawks have relied a lot on the passing game because Geno Smith is top of the league when it comes to passing yards. But I do think Kenneth Walker is going to be able to take advantage of a Jets defense that has looked poor against the run. What you think?
Yeah, I actually like it. I like it as well. I'll take it because I think that Jets defense, their weakness is definitely against the run. They're allowing a lot of rush attempts, even though Kenneth Walker hasn't put up massive numbers. Sean mentioned, aside from like week 1, I think he had one other like 80 plus yard game, but I like the Seahawks utilizing him in this one against the Jets defense. So I will alt it.
Well, you guys are just double teaming me today because I'm fading that because I think that they're going to make them one dimensional. They're going to make Seattle one dimensional. So it means they're going to stop the run for once, make them pass the ball, which is their strength, and they're just going to feast on them. Like I said, I'm liking the Jets. To be one of my underdog picks of the week. So I'm fading that. I'm fading Kenneth Walker.
What you think, Kenny?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. He hasn't put up the numbers all year long. I just think it's a good matchup for him. And like I said, I think he's one of the better running backs in the league. And I think if he does get the carries, I think he should. Just depending, when I look at running backs, I look at like yards per carry. And I think that's big because, if he's going to get the ball 20 times in this game, 3 yards a pop will get him around that 75 number. A little bit more, obviously, would get
4 yards a pop would get 80. So just by that principle, I think with the Jets run defense the way it's been all year long, I think they're going to want to use Walker and utilize him, and it just depends on how successful his runs come out. So let's go to another running back that's almost impossible to fade. And if any of you guys are fading this, maybe you just don't take it, but I definitely wouldn't fade it. Saquon Barkley, 125 rushing plus receiving plus 130, 150 rushing plus receiving is plus 320. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. This is Saquon Barkley at 300 yards total offense. So this is only half of what he had last week. He's been a monster all year long, of course. Ravens defense has struggled, I know, primarily against the pass, but this is an opportunity for him to improve his MVP candidacy against another MVP candidate in Lamar Jackson. So I think he pops off yet again. What are you guys thinking about Saquon Barkley to continue this legacy run he's going on?
This is it. This is the show. This is the showstopper. This is going to really influence the voters as far as him being MVP, going against two guys that could or should be or considered in the MVP race with King Henry and Jackson. I think this is where he shows off. 4:25 p.m. kickoff. This is where they really get put on the map. Last week, primetime game, Saquon got put on the map, but I think this time, this really takes him over the top with an impressive offensive output going into this game. So I don't know if I would alt it to 150, but I'm very comfortable with 125. Very comfortable 125.
Yeah, I like 125 rushing and receiving because we do know that he can be a receiving threat. So that combined, I know I said I don't think he's going to go for over 300 combined yards again back-to-back weeks, but I could see him going over 125 when it's combined, both rushing and receiving, because he is hungry for that MVP and to prove himself, and as he should be. And we also know that Nick Sirianni is a coach who loves to play into those narratives and help his guys out. He's a player's coach. I think that's why we're seeing Jalen Hurts not get as many touchdowns and them kind of handing the ball off more to Saquon to get into the end zone, because they've heard the chatter and they want to get Saquon what he deserves. So I like it. I'll alt it.
Yeah, I think Saquon only had maybe 3 games this year. If my research is correct, 3 games this year where he didn't have 125 plus when it came to rushing and receiving. So it's just,
is that crazy to say?
It's either 3 or 4, but I think it's 3, right? Like, it's what he does, right? Like, if he doesn't get over 100 rushing, he's going to at least make that up with a receiving touchdown somewhere. So it's what's going to happen for Saquon Barkley. So I'm with you, Kenny. I think that's almost a guarantee. The 125 is almost a guarantee. The 150, which is at plus 320, now that can be debatable, but the 125, he gets that more times than he doesn't.
Yeah, me and the former producer of the show, Kevin Lapko, were talking about the Eagles-Rams game, trying to make a little same-game parlay, and he shied me away from going alting Saquon Barkley's yards all the way up. So I'll never forgive him for that one. That could have been a part of our ticket last week. Instead, we just stayed away from Saquon. No touchdown, no yards. We just did A.J. Brown props, and I think I forget who failed us on the parlay last week, but yeah, I mean, it's the numbers seem big when you're looking at his rushing prop totals, but he gets it all the time because he's getting the carries and he's breaking out big runs. So I think he's a bet on anytime, no matter the matchup.
That's a crazy, man, that we're talking about 125. Yeah, we're talking about 125 and we're altering it up to 150. And it's a serious possibility. That just goes to show how talented he is, man. So, I mean, how do you not keep him up with 1 or 2 in the MVP race?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's historical season period for him, right? Like, so when you have historical seasons, awards will come. All right, when we come back, what are we going to do? What we're going to do is talk about the big games. We just talked about the Ravens, Eagles. There's plenty to talk about there. Chargers, Falcons, Steelers, Bengals. Unlike last week, there's a lot of big games to be had this week, and we'll break them all down on the Sunday Spread. Welcome back to the Sunday Spread. Sean Bell, Devin Caney, Barrett Brooks. It's big game time, big game hunting. A lot of big games this week. Last week, you had some great games to watch because there were upsets, but there was a lot of games that should have been blowouts. So got a lot of 2-7 teams facing 8-2 teams. So we're going to bring Kenny Henderson, our producer, back in to give us the biggest games of the week. Kenny, what you got first?
Let's start with maybe the biggest game of the season up to this point. Eagles and Ravens. Ravens are 3-point favorites. The total is 51. Eagles on the money line plus 130. Ravens on the money line minus 155. The Ravens coming off a win on Monday Night Football. The Eagles coming off a win on Sunday Night Football. So this is a huge one. Devin, I already know what you're going with. Barrett, are you riding with your guys' Eagles?
Of course, I'm riding with them, and it's almost disrespectful that we're 3-point underdogs, especially considering the fact they're playing at home too. It's like they're 6-point underdogs, But yeah, I mean, I just think this Eagles team is a more complete team. You can't say anything but, okay, this Eagles team is a dominant team. But for us to, when you really look at it, I just think that the Ravens are good. But defensively, I think the Eagles are better defensively. I think they're more complete defensively. Not even coming from an offensive standpoint. We already know the high-powered offense of the Eagles is better than them. But both teams are teams that, they play around in the first half and then they score all the points in the second half. I think both teams are right around, 16 points, 17 points, 18 points in the second half. In the first half, they kind of squander around a little bit, establishing a run. And I think it's going to go the same way. So I love the Eagles on this easily. I think they beat them. I think it's going to be a double-digit beat down also, looking at it. Yeah, double-digit. Yeah, I said that. That means I'll go plus 10 looking at this game. And I just like this. I like this matchup better. But I am going with the under. I'm going with the under. At this point, I don't think both teams will, score that many, but I think there still be a double-digit win. But I think I'm still going with the under.
Oof. What do you think? Hey, are you this confident, Dev? A 10-point dub for the Philadelphia Eagles?
A 10-point dub? I don't know. I think that they can definitely beat the Ravens as long as their offense, comes out and is firing on all cylinders. Like quite literally, I don't think that they can just rely on the run in this one. They need to make sure they're getting the ball to A.J. Brown. They need to make sure they're getting the ball to Dallas Goedert, to whoever the second receiver is, whether Devontae Smith plays or doesn't play. I just think that the Eagles have the advantage on both sides of the ball, but especially defensively. Like I said earlier in the show, like the Ravens defense is not great. And the Eagles defense has been playing great for weeks in a row. Now, that being said, they took a big hit. They lost Brandon Graham for the season, and he was having a really, really productive season. That's going to hurt them, especially when it comes to stopping Derrick Henry, who's like, let's not forget, like he and Saquon Barkley are like right there for most rushing yards in the league right now. Derrick Henry has the most rushing touchdowns in the league because Saquon has, as Sean says, the touchdown merchant and Jalen Hurts to deal with, who steals some of his. But that's a loss, and Darius Slay probably not going to play because he got a concussion last week, so I doubt he's going to be ready. So you hope that the guys who I know that they signed, I believe 2 veteran free agents, the Eagles did, as edge rushers, and they're going to have these younger guys like Jalix Hunt, like Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, probably up their snap count. Hopefully they can all step up and fill in for BG. So that hurts them, but I don't think it's detrimental to the Eagles' defensive performance. So I like the Eagles.
Shocker, guys. Shocker. I like the Ravens at home. I think, again, I disagree with Barrett. I think this is going to be a close matchup between 2 very close teams. And I think the Baltimore Ravens being at home match up quite well with the Eagles. And I think Brandon Graham was having an amazing game last week. Amazing game. He's been their best pass rusher. Right. 15 years in, he was their best pass rusher on that team throughout this season. So I think that's going to be a big hurt. Not having BG out there barking at people, not having the veteran out there telling people what to do, not having the veteran out there to get pass rushes on the quarterback. So I think that's going to be a struggle. And I also think Vic's defense is predicated on how great the secondary has been. And so I think it's going to be Derrick Henry. I think it's going to be Lamar Jackson. I think it's going to be a lot of the running game. So I just think a lot of the Baltimore Ravens strengths are, I don't want to say Eagles' weaknesses because I don't really feel like the Eagles have a weakness, but a lesser of their strength. And at the same time, you look at the other end, they do a very good job of stopping the run, but their pass defense hasn't been good. Well, I don't know. Jalen Hurts hasn't proven that he can carry something on his back yet. Not this season when it comes to throwing the ball and throwing for a win. Every one of their wins has been based on that running game being great. And then they'll get 1 or 2 great throws down the field that help them win the game. But it hasn't been predicated on him passing the ball the entire game. So I think the Baltimore Ravens get this win in a close. I wouldn't be surprised either way. Don't get it twisted. I'm not hating. So I wouldn't be surprised either way, but I'm giving the slight edge to Baltimore, especially because they are at home. Kenny, what do you think?
I think the Eagles are worlds better than the Ravens when it comes to just better team. I think they've got the matchups here. A.J. Brown and the receivers. I know Smith might be out, but the receivers against the Baltimore secondary that struggled all year long. And then when you look at up front for Philly on that defense and also in the secondary, the Ravens, their strength is to run the football. So if Philly's able to do that with guys like Jalen Carter up the middle, I know you guys said they're missing Brandon Graham, but if they're able to somewhat contain Derrick Henry, and then when it comes to stopping Lamar Jackson in the passing game, I don't think the Ravens have the receivers to beat this Eagles secondary the way that they're playing right now. So I don't think we see the Ravens offense in full form. I think the Eagles, Saquon Barkley's on a mission right now, and I like the Eagles a lot to win this game outright. I love the money line at plus 130. I don't know about going away. I think it'll be a very close game, but I think the Eagles are the better team, and despite being on the road, I think they're going to pull out the win in this game. I'm ready to apologize to Nick Sirianni because although I don't think he's a great coach, I think that he has the team where they need to be right now. And that's the most important thing because they're a very, very talented football team. And it would be a shame for him to mess up what could be a great season for them. So I like the Eagles a lot in this matchup. Let's go to Chargers versus Falcons, another interconference match.
We have one more thing. We don't know what Roquan Smith's status is. Mm-hmm. And he's definitely a pivotal point in them trying to stop Saquon. If he doesn't play, it'll be a 10-point victory. If he does play, then we got to temper our expectations a little bit in there. But him not being in the roster, right, him not playing would be a definite booster for this Eagles offense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm done now.
I'm done. All right, let's go to Chargers and Falcons. Chargers coming off a loss against the Ravens on Monday Night Football last week. The Falcons coming off a bye following their terrible loss against the Broncos the week prior. So these are two teams looking for a bounce back win here, both in the playoff picture. So this is a huge game on both sides of the AFC and NFC. Devin, what are we thinking about Chargers and Falcons?
I think the Chargers can bounce back and kind of avenge their loss to the Ravens and Harbaugh Bowl. The Chargers are a good team, and I think the Falcons have been faltering a bit. I know that they got off to, their first game of the season was rough, and then after that, they kind of soared for a bit, no pun intended there. But I think they're kind of being brought back down to what they really are. I mean, there's only so much you can do despite having guys like Bijan Robinson, with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback. I'm just like, for me, not seeing the explosiveness I'd want to out of that Falcons offense, whereas the Chargers, losing J.K. Dobbins is rough, but they still have Gus Edwards. They still have guys that they can get the ball out to. Justin Herbert's playing really well. So I think the Chargers can bounce back from their loss, even if they're on shorter rest and the Falcons have had a bye. So Falcons have like double the rest that the Chargers will. But I just like Harbaugh in a bounce back spot.
What do you think, Barrett?
Just looking at it, I have, like I said, the Falcons haven't been on my radar. Even their players haven't been on my radar as far as betting for like the last 3 or 4 weeks. I was looking, where's Bijan Robinson at this point? Where's London at? I mean, where's Pitts at? I mean, I don't know what's going on with that team. And just looking at it, I like the Chargers. The Chargers at this point are becoming a complete team. They're being more of a team that, not this year, but next year should be contenders in that division. I just don't think at this point the Falcons really can compete with what they have going on. Harbaugh has really slowed things down on opposing offenses with that defense. They're playing sound defense and they're running the ball consistently. So, I mean, I like the Chargers in this game, with points and outright.
Yeah, the Chargers, I said at the beginning of the season that Jim Harbaugh will win Coach of the Year. I mean, this is a good football team, right? Like, they lost last week, but they lost to the Baltimore Ravens, a really good team, in a close game to someone who knows Jim Harbaugh better than anybody else knows Jim Harbaugh. Right. So, of course, they lose that game to a Baltimore Raven team that just has more talent and that's a better team right now. But the Chargers are just good, right? They just consistently play good football week in, week out. You know they're going to play very good defense. Herbert's starting to look like the Herbert of old, coming off that injury coming into the season. Ladd McConkey has been a great betting pick, by the way, right? Like, he's somebody that betting hasn't caught up to yet. Where you go, you can get that guy for over 50 yards at minus 130, or you can get him for over 75 yards at plus 230. Oh, yeah, because he's the main target for Justin Herbert in this offense right now and with wide receivers. So he's someone to bet on consistently, and he's been sneaking up on people. But yeah, the Chargers are just an overall better team. Kenny, what do you think?
So we're all on the Chargers here. I wanted to take the Chargers too, but I just feel like this could be a weird game because the Falcons being at home. We've seen the Chargers in past years. I know it's a different team under Harbaugh, but in past years go on to the East Coast, play an early game, and just not play their best brand of football. I think that could possibly happen here, but I think the Chargers are the better team. I was a lot higher on the Falcons when Kirk was throwing for 500 and the offense was clicking, but now that it's kind of taken a step back, I think that this team is very handicapped in a lot of ways because the defense isn't great. Kirk isn't mobile. He can't make plays on his own. So I'm going to take the Chargers here, but begrudgingly because I know that they could possibly go on the East Coast and just play a bad brand of football. But I would like to believe with Jim Harbaugh now at head coach, it's not going to be like how it was with Brandon Staley and even back in the day with, what was it, Norv Turner, who was coaching that football team. So I like the Chargers in this game as well, and we're all on the Chargers. What can go wrong? So. All right, let's go to Steelers-Bengals. This is a big game, guys, and I'll say this. I think this is step one for the Bengals to making this run to the playoffs. I think 9-8 is where they need. That's where they need to be. 10-7 would obviously be winning out, and that would potentially get them a playoff spot because they play Denver later in the season, so they can steal the tiebreaker away from them by beating them. And then, like I said, this is step one. They lose this game, they're out. They win, and it's step one towards making that run to the playoffs. So do any of us like the Bengals going up against the Steelers at home?
I'm torn on this one. Like, I know that I've been pretty high on the Steelers, throughout this season, especially recently, because they've really been playing well. Their defense has always been great. Coach has always been an advantage of Mike Tomlin, even though he did have some questionable decisions in recent games. But their offense, I think, is starting to look, I know that Russell Wilson came in and they were looking like they kind of got the offense thing together. And now the offense of the Steelers is looking a little suspect and inefficient again. And I think that when you're going against an offense, no matter how bad the Bengals defense is with Joe Burrow, like, you can't just rely on your defense and special teams to keep you afloat. So because of that, I could see the Bengals beating the Steelers, but it's just hard for me. It's hard for me to bet against that Steelers defense because they've been so good. So I'm torn. I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I'm not torn, Phil. I'm not torn at all. Listen, the Bengals have let up in the last 4 games 34 points, 35 points, 24, which is good, and then 37, obviously, against the Eagles. They're letting up points like no one's business. Just here. You want to score? You want to score? So I think this is the game the Steelers get back on track. I think my ISS boy, George Pickens, gets a touchdowns and has a big game this week because the Bengals defense is so bad. So I think the Steelers defense will be good enough to hold the Bengals at bay, while I think the Steelers offense with Najee Harris and George Pickens will be able to convert touchdowns because they've been bad when it comes to completing drives. But they've been able to move the ball over the last few weeks. Yeah, they settle for field goals, 6 field goals, 6 field goals, 3 field goals. But this time, I think it won't be field goals they settle for. I think they actually get in the end zone.
And that's my only thing right there. I mean, they've shown the ability from 20 to 20 to move the ball. And, and like it or not, you can't continue to think that you can thrive off kicking field goals all the time, man. You got to go down and score in the red zone. And I don't know what's going on with, I really do know what's going on with Russell. I think we kind of overvalued Russell back when he was in Seattle with that defense. They had that number 1 ranked scoring defense in the league. So when you look at Russell Wilson, yes, he was good, but was he really that great? Was he really that guy that that was a MVP candidate. I think it was more so that defense, being a great defense. So I think this is really who Russell Wilson is, and he's better right now and what they need. He's what they need in that offense right now. I think him and Pickens do have a nice little chemistry going together, which is why I think this might be the upset for Cincinnati. I think it might be an upset for Cincinnati gets upset this game because defensively, I think him and George can go out there and make it happen.
All right, I think so too. Listen, when we come back, we got breaking news. Something broke during the show. We talked earlier about someone getting fired. Well, guess what? Somebody got fired. We'll let you know after this break. This is the Sunday Spread. Welcome back to the Sunday Spread. Devin Caney, Sean Bell, Barrett Brooks. We talked about at the beginning of the show, who's going to get fired first, right? You had a bunch of coaches on Thanksgiving Day who you said to yourself, that was a terrible job. You may be done. And something has already happened. Matt Eberflus fired. They let him speak this morning. They let him go to the press conference. He said he was fine. We thought he was going to be able to go through the entire season before he got fired. But after that press conference, they fired him. So we're going to bring Kenny, who broke it to us, who's in Chicago. Kenny Henderson, come back in. Matt Eberflus gone. What's your feeling? What's your take? What is the city saying?
This should have happened a while ago, guys. I think that the Commanders moment was the first domino to fall to where people were, really clamoring for it. And then everything following that, all the late game blunders. And yesterday was just the cherry on top. And I think that the Bears organization didn't want to do this all along. That's why they've been so weird with it, is they've never fired a coach in season. So all these things happen and, they're not doing it. And then yesterday happens. And I think if they wouldn't have fired him today, I don't know the city would have been on fire probably. I mean, you guys talk about how mean you guys can be out there in Philly. It's almost just as bad here in Chicago. So I mean, I'm glad. I was talking to Barrett during the break about Caleb Williams possibly being ruined by this because this could derail his confidence. If Thomas Brown is not the head coach who he took over as offensive coordinator when Waldron got fired, if he doesn't step in and be the interim and be that guy for Caleb to help his confidence towards the end of the year, then I'm worried because this is something that could ruin a rookie quarterback. We've seen Trevor Lawrence down in Jacksonville really struggle despite making the playoffs and winning a playoff game. We've seen him struggle with the organizational failures out in Jacksonville. We've seen it in many instances here in Chicago. Even if we haven't had a quarterback like Caleb Williams, it always seems to not go well with quarterbacks here. So I think that's got to be the main priority for the Bears moving forward is how do we let this disastrous situation that Matt Eberflus put us in not ruin our franchise quarterback. And I think that's where they have to step in. And I think Thomas Brown will be the guy. I could only imagine. I don't even know who else they would have to step in and be that interim guy. It has not been announced yet, but as the more we look and the more we learn today, we will figure out who that guy will be.
Man, you don't want him to be a perpetual loser. I mean, that's the biggest thing. You don't want him to be a perpetual loser. You don't want him to, to get used to losing. I think that's exactly what happened to Lawrence down in Jacksonville. You just don't want that to happen. You've got to bring somebody in with some credibility or have somebody in the organization with some credibility to really boost him, because you don't want him to turn into a Fields leaves, you know what I'm saying? And he's going to be the same way. He eventually ends up leaving, 2 years from now, or gets traded, so he has talent. We see what he can do. He's shown the ability to be a good quarterback at times, but he needs that coaching. You need to be able to maximize his potential as a player. And that's exactly what the Eagles are doing right now with Jalen Hurts. They're maximizing everything that he has, and they're pulling it out of him. You think Brown could pull that out of him as a player? I mean, at this point?
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Brown's been a positive influence on him so far. That's the thing that's funny to me. Well, I guess not funny, but just unordinary about the situation is that Caleb Williams never liked Matt Eberflus. He never liked Shane Waldron. He didn't like the people that were in place. Or I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think it was kind of obvious that like those weren't his guys, right? And he's a rookie quarterback. Right. He's the team. He's inheriting the team and what's already there. But like I just think that if the relationship was never there from the beginning, then why did it take so long for everybody to realize that like this was just never going to work with Matt Eberflus? Not that you were going to fire him before the season. It's just like the idea that they've let all this happen up to this point. The Minnesota game, the Green Bay game, the Washington game, all that, and then yesterday's game. And I just think that can really take a toll on Caleb Williams moving forward. Can he bounce back from all this dysfunction that the Bears have? So it'll be interesting to see. We'll see who is the guy that steps in, and I think Caleb Williams is the most important piece for the Bears moving forward, obviously. So they got to figure out how to get his confidence back on track.
Deb,
I think the good news, if you want to take away a silver lining here, and it's going to sound harsh, but it can't get worse, right? For Caleb Williams, like he's already been through. Like they fired the OC before, right? They fired Matt Eberflus. He has not had a good rookie season. I know that there is a risk that it can hurt his confidence, but I do have a feeling that it's early enough, and we are still seeing, some bright spots when it comes to Caleb Williams and his play. I think he's improved a lot, even just from the start of the season. That and I credit that to him, like not and his natural talent as a quarterback, not to any coaches. So I think that this can be a good thing for him. Maybe not this season, but I think, give him a fresh start next season and the future's bright.
This is, first of all, it's foul that they had let him go to the press conference and then fired him.
That is really messed up.
You know what I mean? Matt Eberflus wasn't a good coach, but allowing him to do that and then firing him afterwards, like why would you make him go through that? That's like, okay, if you're going to fire me before I come to work. Don't make me drive into work and put in the hours and do all those things and then fire me. I could have been at home chilling, eating Thanksgiving leftovers. So I thought that was foul. But now I'm looking at who can come in and save this thing. The Chicago Bears job is going to be probably the number one spot in all of football, right? It's going to be the number one spot because you look at this team, you go, you got weapons galore, right? You got Rome Odunze, you got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift is playing really good football. You got a tight end. You got Montez Sweat defensively. You got some good defensive pieces. You just got to revamp your offensive line and have good head coaching. And so I'm looking at guys. I'm looking at Ben Johnson. I'm looking at Kellen Moore, quite frankly. I think they're going to look for an offensive guy to come in and do some damage. And I think it's funny because I feel like this is why teams don't have consistency in winning, because once you win, your coordinators get stolen. Right? The Eagles went to the Super Bowl in 2022. Give me both of them coordinators. And then you have a down year. I think the reason the Lions are playing so well is because they have both of their coordinators back. The reason the Kansas City Chiefs have a dynasty is because none of their coordinators want to be none of their coordinators want to be head coaches anymore. Right? Like it's like, okay, Steve Spagnuolo's like been there, done that. I'm just going to be a defense coordinator. And Andy Reid is Andy Reid. He runs that offense. So I think they're going to be able to pluck away somebody from a rival, whether it's a division rival or an NFC rival, and add to what they're doing. So I'm looking at, I don't know what you think, Kenny. I don't know what y'all think, but I'm looking at Ben Johnson as the number one. And I'm looking at Kellen Moore, even though I don't love Kellen Moore as a head coach, but they're definitely going to look at a offensive-minded guy to babysit Caleb Williams and take him to the next level. So those are the two individuals that I think they're going to look at. Ben first, and then Kellen Moore. What do y'all think about that?
What about the big names like Belichick and Vrabel? I know that they're more defensive-minded, but
Belichick's having too much fun with his 24-year-old girlfriend.
Right.
Which I don't know if they can come coach.
Here in Philly, we hear like, oh, like why didn't the Eagles hire Belichick, or the Cowboys are going to hire Belichick? It's like, you think he wants to come back? I think he's just enjoying retirement right now, or whatever he's calling whatever he's doing right now.
Commercial.
I think he takes a year off. I think he comes back. I think he wants the record. I'm gonna take a year off and have some fun, but I do think he comes back. I think he's an option for the Bears, but really, I still think Ben will be the number one based on the offensive mind and wanting to do what they need to do for Caleb Williams.
You think Cliff Kingsbury gets another opportunity, especially what he's done with Josh Daniels and in Washington?
Oh, Jaden.
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. Nah.
Jaden Daniels.
Him, he looks like a pure coordinator. You know what I mean? Maybe if he does get another shot, I think he's got to do it longer in Washington than just 1 year.
Right.
For someone to hire him again and sort of say we've learned from all the BS. But Matt Eberflus gone, and again, I don't think that it's going to be over. there's more head coaches to get fired. We're looking who's the next guy before we move on to the bets. Would y'all put your money on Dable or Peterson to be the next individual out?
Dable.
I think Peterson.
I would say Peterson, and I think it's going to happen if they lose this week, probably.
Yeah.
See, I would say Peterson, but I also feel like we've said that every week this season about the Jags. It's like if they lose this week, this is going to be the week, and then he's still around.
I feel like he got a cop out though with Mac
Jones
Jones starting.
Yeah, I mean,
he always gets a cop out. He's overseas, or he's got built-in excuses every single week, man. But come on, man.
I think Dable is a guarantee at some point because new GMs want their guy. I don't care about how good you are. I don't care if you got screwed. I'm a new GM. I want my guy. So I think Dable is going to be gone at the end of the season regardless. It's just if it's going to be, I guess, in this case scenario before Doug Peterson. All right, let's get to our best bets. Let's get to those quick for Thanksgiving. Devin, I'll start with you. What are your best bets, your surefire bets for this Sunday?
Yeah, I'll go over my anytime touchdowns again. Marvin Harrison Jr., Pat Freiermuth, whose name I cannot say, Bucky Irving touchdown, and if you want to take an A.J. Brown touchdown, I also kind of liked him for 2, but don't throw that in the parlay. You could do A.J. Brown 2 touchdowns on their own. I also like the Eagles winning and covering. I like the Bengals covering, but not necessarily winning against the Steelers. And I like the Bucks over the Panthers. That's all I got.
Okay. I like it. What you got, B. Brooks?
I'm going George Kittle, anytime touchdown. Najee Harris, anytime touchdown. I think CMC needs to stay in the mix, so he gets an anytime touchdown. Joe Mixon, anytime touchdown. And I think Jonathan Taylor comes back for an anytime touchdown. Better game he had before. But then I'm going Steelers outright, with the win. I'm also going Cardinals outright on the win. And, of course, Eagles outright on the win.
Okay. I got George Kittle over 50 yards and a touchdown. I think I'm gonna like that. I said Chuba Herbert for an anytime touchdown, even though I think the Buccaneers will win that game. I think Hubbard is going to be good in that game and play well. Joe Mixon, I have him 75 yards and a touchdown, but I'm thinking about bumping that up to 100. I'm not sure yet, so don't quote me, but I think it's going to be a guaranteed 75 because I think he's going to bounce back in his game and have a good game. So I think he's going to do pretty well. I got George Pickens, like I said earlier, going crazy. I think he's going to have over 100 yards and an anytime touchdown. ISS Buddy's going to go crazy, and he's going to fight 2 people while he does it. If there's a bet for how many people you can fight, George Pickens is going to do that. So those are the bets that I have. Real quick, Kenny, you've been in. Do you got a quick guarantee that you like?
Oh, I got to guarantee Eagles plus 130 on the money line, beating the you-know-what out of the Ravens on Sunday in Baltimore.
That's my guy.
I can't wait till next week. Because if I'm right, there's going to be a lot of bullets flying y'all way, especially.
I might. Look, I might block you, bro. I might block you on my phone because I can hear you now.
Eagles lose,
even though we're not going to go to 49ers.
I won't text you, but during the show, it'll be all smoke. All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy leftover weekend, everybody. And by the way, you got about 5 days for your leftovers, I'll say. Anything past that, y'all disgusting to me. Okay, I'm just saying. The ham you could freeze, so I get it. The turkey you can freeze, I can get it. But you got 5 days to clear that thing out, and I'm being generous because a lot of my friends give you 3 days. That's all I'm saying. All right.
Yeah, 5 is a bit much, honestly. 5 for like stuffing.
Yeah, it is a bit much, but that's how far I'll go with it. This has been the Sunday Spread. Devin Caney, Sean Bell, Barrett Brooks.